A dangerous attempt to steal prey from a nest is described, with questioning about the risk versus reward. Someone's car breaks down in an abandoned area with no one around. A kidnapper warns a captive woman not to try any tricks while searching for an Aether core she supposedly hid. A group called Ambiguous interrupts the kidnapping, claiming they had already claimed the woman. They're curious about her bravery in drinking from a black glass and how she'll react when cornered. The situation escalates as it's revealed Sylas sent someone for the Aether core. The head of Ambiguous appears, ordering his subordinates to eliminate remaining threats. The protagonist hears a familiar voice, urging them to possess and devour someone to gain power. The voice claims they are kindred spirits, suggesting a shared past and inevitable future crimes. After 3 days of failing to achieve resonance, the protagonist confronts someone they believe responsible for their family's deaths. The antagonist taunts them, suggesting their family might have wanted to kill them. Despite their desire to fight, the protagonist hesitates when given the opportunity. The protagonist has been unconscious for a day. Upon waking, they experience a strange phenomenon where their soul leaves their body. Someone reveals they met 4 days ago and were rescued from a traitor and brought to Ambiguous' base. After a failed attempt to kill someone, the protagonist is warned about people hunting them. Despite being offered freedom to leave, the protagonist discovers escape is nearly impossible. They overhear a conversation about inflating protocols into human hearts and consciousness into wanderers. The protagonist is offered a weapon for self-defense and a deal since escape is impossible. The captor suggests only they can provide what the protagonist truly desires. After a display of weakness in controlling their evil, the protagonist is given 10 minutes to eat before meeting outside. The protagonist and captor head to the N109 zone, where there are no speed limits. They arrive at a location where Sylas presents the protagonist as a test subject for an evil linkage alteration project, despite protests that they're just a normal evolver. News of 2 explosions is discussed, one in northern suburbs and another in Bloomshire district. An examination reveals the protagonist's evil linkage is normal but suppressed. The technician explains the suppression might be because subconsciously, the protagonist rejects, fears, or is disgusted by Sylas. The protagonist is advised to remain calm and stay with Sylas for safety, especially since they possess part of an Aether core. Someone recognizes a protocurve and warns that the N109 zone is dangerous for outsiders. A cryptic message suggests those with hearts can be crueler than those without. The protagonist encounters a street vendor selling flowers, guns, bullets, and protocores. They're led to someone charging 50,000 per word of information, with a 5% discount for newcomers. Information about an auction at Solemn Hotel is shared, with rumors of valuable treasure worth hundreds of thousands. Gossip circulates about Sylas being absent for a long time, with speculation about his possible disappearance or death. Sherman's group has grown increasingly arrogant during Sylas's absence. The information broker warns against prying into matters that shouldn't concern outsiders. A conversation reveals that Sylas is a feared figure whose presence alongside Ambiguous would deter boldness from others. A child offers a flower while describing Sylas as a monstrous figure with wings and horns who threatens to feed disobedient children to his man-eating bird. Meanwhile, a party is occurring where Ambiguous' important guest has gone missing, prompting a search operation. The scene shifts to a crowded venue where someone suggests bringing out a guest that Mr. Sherman is looking for. When denied that the person is present, threats are made to force information from people. A girl is identified as Ambiguous' target, making her valuable. Someone attempts to protect her rather than immediately handing her over. A tense encounter occurs where someone saves the girl but is met with a gun pointed at them in return. The rescuer makes a cynical comment about expecting politeness from people in the N109 zone. They challenge the notion of retreat and propose a deal. If the girl can stand her ground for 5 minutes at an auction, she can attend. They're stalling for time in darkness. Instructions are given to aim at Mephisto, with someone identified as the Crow trying to help. Security measures are mentioned, with 67 of something remaining. Someone announces they will reveal the greatest discovery to the world. The Flux Nexus is mentioned before a confrontation ends, with someone begging to be spared. After an incident, someone is called special. A creature named Mephisto is introduced, who gets upset if called a pet. A conversation reveals they're in the N109 zone where escape from someone's influence is impossible. The scene transitions to demands for wine, with a comment that a bar is more obedient than someone present. Questions arise about interest in a dead person. 2 explosions are mentioned, one in northern suburbs and another in Bloomshore district. Someone is accused of making a mess and using another as a scapegoat. A mysterious ability is described that helps see what people want most, exposing desires they refuse to admit. A challenge is issued. If someone can take an item within 24 hours, terms will be agreed to. The challenger emphasizes the need for a bargaining chip to make deals, and tells the other person to use their own methods. This leads to a frantic search for something that has disappeared, possibly hidden or consumed. Someone attempts to hide and escape when Sylas appears. A list of attendees from an event at the Nest is mentioned. Sylas notes this is their 4th meeting since the previous night and reminds them about a Broach finding challenge with no specified method. Despite protests, Sylas orders them to leave as he's going to bed. The protagonist realizes Sylas never intended to make a deal. Others offer to help, suggesting that to win over someone like their boss requires challenging their authority. They advise striking when he's least guarded, while sleeping. Despite concerns about getting killed, the protagonist decides to try using evil nullifying handcuffs and a tranquilizer gun. The confrontation with Sylas takes an unexpected turn. Despite using handcuffs that supposedly nullify evil powers, Sylas remains in control. The protagonist finds the brooch, but Sylas reveals the entire situation was manipulated. He keeps the protagonist around because they're still useful and he enjoys watching his prey struggle. The protagonist barely passes Sylas's test as an auction is about to begin. Sylas gives them a brooch that allows free movement in the N109 zone. They discuss a plan to make everyone lower their guard, lure out those with ill intentions, and retrieve the other half of the Aether core. Sylas assures it won't fail. As the operation begins, Sylas positions the protagonist as bait while he leaves temporarily. The protagonist examines protocors, noting one seems tampered with. Playing the role convincingly, they make extravagant purchases with Sylas's card, escalating from 1 million to 10 million, buying everything available to maintain their cover. Sylas confronts someone who betrayed him, noting they were too cowardly to act alone, but accepted an offer to replace him. He punishes the betrayer in advance. Meanwhile, someone offers to buy the protagonist's brooch for 10 high towers, weapons powerful enough to destroy the entire hotel. Sylas intervenes, claiming the brooch was his gift. During a dance, information about the Aether core's location is offered. Sylas warns the protagonist to be smarter about retaliation and to stay focused on their role to avoid scaring away targets. A confrontation ensues with enemies using outdated weapons, and Sylas dismisses their backup plan before stating that violence should be used strategically. They travel to a location containing what they seek. Sylas calls the protagonist a naive Lincoln citizen, noting that while many locations were affected by a catastrophe, only the N109 zone became a wasteland. Upon arrival, They discover fluctuations produced by something beyond normal protocols, a mysterious force. A tense situation unfolds as someone is warned to think carefully before taking an irreversible action. After some effort, something presentable is finally achieved. The scene shifts to disorientation as someone questions their whereabouts amidst overwhelming circumstances. A character named Sylas appears, urging continued progress despite difficulties. There's mention of a life debt that doesn't need immediate repayment. The focus turns to an Aether core, which apparently now belongs to the protagonist. Sylas explains that the vessel will break as a result of this power transfer. The protagonist questions this development, suggesting it might be what they wanted all along. They resist being taken somewhere and encounter a mysterious entity. Later, there's news that traitors and thieves have been dealt with, and the Aether core destroyed. Someone has cleaned up the nest, eliminating further threats. The protagonist appears confused about recent events. A discussion ensues about removing what seems to be an energy linkage between them and another person. One suggests chopping off a hand or settling in the N109 zone, while the other prefers destroying the Aether core causing the link. It's revealed that Aether cores created this mysterious link. The protagonist mentions experiencing strange visions before resonating with the other person. They're told such visions will become more common. The world is described as different from appearances, with dangers lurking outside the N109 zone. Despite warnings about external dangers, the protagonist intends to leave but requests safe passage. They're reminded of a deal between them. Due to the ongoing resonance issue, they'll be meeting more frequently in the future. The scene shifts to an auction, reaching 8.5 million, then 9 million. Someone struggles with removing something while lying down. Sylas calls a capped price at an auction and wins. The scene changes to an unexpected encounter at a hotel, where one character is surprised to see a familiar face. They debate about staying at the same hotel. A suggestion to go somewhere together is made. There's talk about praying for divine intervention, with piety being key. The conversation reveals that an energy tether disconnects itself when one person sleeps, but this causes inconvenience as it pins down the other's arm. One character dismisses this explanation as superstition rather than science. There's a sarcastic exchange about lulling someone to sleep despite it being afternoon. A lullaby is mockingly sung, followed by comments about giving an inch and taking more. The conversation continues with one person instructed to close their eyes and stop talking as patience wears thin. Questions arise about why the tether isn't attached to both hands. Something unexpected happens, prompting the question, "What did you do?" A metaphor comparing their situation to a snake strangling its prey is presented. The tether apparently shortens when one thinks about escaping the other. The time is noted as around 6:30. One person considers snooping around the other's belongings, justifying that taking one's own stuff isn't stealing. Someone's imminent arrival creates urgency. They hide in a closet to avoid being discovered. One person remains calm about potentially meeting the newcomer, while the other is anxious. The closet proves difficult to open, creating tension in their hiding spot. They narrowly avoid discovery when someone searches for a coat. A phone rings from an unknown number, but they choose not to answer to keep their relationship secret. One expresses concern that being too close to the other invites trouble. The tethered pair discuss their situation, with one suggesting the other should get used to being tied to a bad man. There's an accusation that one didn't actually want the linkage broken. The tether takes longer to disconnect each time, which is interpreted as growing attachment. One character suggests people deny truths they don't want to accept. There's concern about surveillance cameras capturing their movements. A question arises about whether they'll eventually choose to stand together even without the linkage. The summary concludes with a metaphor about two snakes devouring each other, with one inevitably emerging victorious.